Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're taking a look again at Twilight Masquerade. Some of the best decks I think going into this format. I think we're looking at stuff like Dragapult. In this video it's Lugia. In a few other videos we've done Blissey, we'll take a look at Charizard and some other decks and how they evolve in the new game. Lugia sort of had a comeback in Temporal Forces but never really hit its stride. In this one I think we've finally found the cards to make it work. It just needed, well, it needs more consistency honestly, but the Legacy Energy just gives it that power. It gives it that versatility to use different attackers and win games in different ways. So we're going to start obviously with the Lugias. We've got a 4-3 line of these. Now this potentially could go down to a 3-3. The list is very tight at the moment. Not really sure I'd like to cut a Lugia V. I have seen lists run it before and we've seen it been popular before, but I'm not really sure about that one. Obviously the most important thing in this deck is getting the Archeops in the discard and using that summoning star to bring them back. Speaking of the Archeops, obviously we need 4 of these guys. The Primal Turbo is one of the most powerful abilities in the game. It lets you grab 2 special energy from your deck and attach them to a Pokemon. So the idea is we've got a ton of special energy for a few different attackers. Now the Legacy Energy is an ace spec obviously, so we've only got the 1. It would be absolutely broken if not. What it does is you can use it as any type, but also the Pokemon it's attached to is 1 less prize. So we've got a 3-3 line of Cincino. I'm back and forth on whether I want the 70 HP or 60 HP. At the minute we've got the 160 for the Call for Family and 270, just with Dragapult being so popular. Obviously it can be difficult to evolve them before the Dragapult can strike, but obviously we do have stuff like Mist Energy. So I guess it's how sort of reckless you want to be with this. You could have 160, you could have 360s. It really is down to you. Honestly, I'd probably stick with the 360s. I put the 270s in here to try, just to give them some safety into the Dragapult itself. Again, it's going to come down to you and how you want to play this. Let's talk about some of the other attackers then. So Iron Hands is one that makes its way in. Obviously with Legacy Energy, we are able to use Iron Hands, which is slightly nice. So let's put the hands up here. Obviously Amp You very much is nice into a lot of things. Using stuff like Iron Hands, we've also got some stuff that can attack bench and active. We've got the Cincino that can knock out anything. Basically, whatever they have in the active, we have a way to take 2 prizes. Very similar to something like Chenpao. We've got the Bloodmoon Ursaluna, which is new from the set. Very similar to Radiant Charizard. It just attacks for less the more prizes your opponent takes. So obviously 240 for 5 isn't great, but when we're talking 240 for 2 or 1 or less is pretty nice. Again, just a really good attacker. Hit for some big numbers quite easily at the end. Maybe if you've had to use Cincinos and you're running out of energy, you've got the efficient attacker of Ursaluna to finish things off. Other than that, we've got the Wellspring Mask Ogerpon. This one does Torrential Pump. It does 100 to the active, and then if you shuffle your energy back into your deck, you can do 120 to the bench as well. So a few things good about this. You use the Legacy and you can shuffle it back in so you don't lose it when this thing's knocked out, so that's great. It's a different type, so we've got Lightning, we've got Water. We can hit for a few different weaknesses, but also again it's another way to take 2 prizes. So if they've sat in the active with like a Charmander and they've got a Bibarel on the bench, knock out the Charmander, take the Bibarel as well. Means decks have to put Manaphy down against you, which means they're wasting a bench space. Not really wasting, but they're using a bench space that they don't really want to, which is always good. Finally, the last attacker and support is Lumineon. We do only have 1 of these, and if I could find the space and cut a card, I would definitely add the second Lumineon. You could potentially cut back on some energy, or you could maybe cut back a Lugia V, which you mentioned, or maybe a Cincino. There's a few cards in here, supporters as well, that you could cut, because I do think the Lumineon is quite important. Now we have ways with Legacy to sort of loop it and jump it back into the deck. It's not as much a worry it being knocked out. Let's touch on supporters then. We've got the 3 bosses orders. Important in this deck, obviously searchable by the Lumineon. It does mean we can attack into what we need, so we can Iron Hands stuff that we need to, or if stuff's retreating and we can't quite knock it out, bosses do help us do that. We've also got the Ogerpon, which obviously can reach the bench now as well. Not if they've got Manaphy though, so we've got a few ways to pull up stuff that we want to attack into when we're ready to attack into it. We've got the 1 of Iono. Again, another card I would like another of. Don't know where the space would come currently. We are running quite a few supporters, but I think they're quite important to get set up. Got the 2 bosses orders, slightly more important for our strategy, but not always something we want to play. Obviously, with so much energy in the deck, there's a lot of times our hand is just full of energy. Saying that though, if you've got 2 Archeops in hand, you're gonna hit a research, so we want a few of those in deck. The other new card in the deck is 2 Carmine. Very similar to research, draw until you have 5, discard your hand. However, this can be played on your first turn going first. So potentially if you're made to go first, you've got some Archeops in hand, You can actually Carmine and draw a new hand, which not only lets you get through your deck and set up, it's just a great consistency card. It's not terrible later on, obviously not as good as Research, but it's still playable. We do also have the one Serena still, which can be used as a Gust. So it can bring up bench V Pokemon like Luminion, other Lugias, Giratina, Arceus. So there's a few options still currently in the meta. And then finally we've got the one of Jacques, which lets us find 2 evolution Pokemon. So we're normally searching for the Archeops and stuff. So you can use stuff like the Luminion to find the Jacques out early, get the Archeops in hand and Ultra Ball them away. There's a few different ways to get them in the discard. So Jacques just helps us find those Pokemon when we need them. Later in the game, if we haven't used it, we can use it to find the Lugia VStar or Cincino to either attack with or set up our Summoning Star. In terms of items then, we've got 2 Great Ball. We just want as much search in the deck as possible. Potentially could go up to 4 on that instead of the stadiums we're running. We've got the 4 Capture and Aroma and 4 Ultra Ball as well. So like I say, just a ton of way to find the Pokemon we need. A ton of way to discard them via Ultra Ball. You can also read the wind. We've got Carmine, Professor's Research. So ways to get the Pokemon in hand and ways to get them in the discard. So we can get Summoning Star off. 2 Mesagoza do come back into the deck, obviously instead of the Collapsed Stadium. No longer needing that for Luminion because it can now jump back into your deck, so it's a little safer. These Mesagoza could potentially become Great Balls or just some other kind of search, maybe Nest Balls to find some of your attacking Pokemon. And then in terms of energy, we've got the 1 Legacy Energy, which is our A spec for this deck. I think that's probably the most important card in the deck. It's the main card we use for our attackers. It's how we attack with Iron Hands, the Ogerpon and the Luminion. We've got the 4 Mist Energy, just if Dragapult's going to be so popular, it does stop stuff like damage being dropped. It also stops stuff like Devo, so if a Charizard's hit into Lugia and then they devolve it, it makes it a little more, a little easier to tank with. It protects them against stuff like Roaring Moon, Giratina, a ton of different uses for Mist, so we've got 4 of those. We've also got the 4 Double Turbo. We've just got a ton of 4-ofs for the energy. So Turbo is good to set up our Lugias. It's good to throw on the Iron Hands or Luminion. Even the Wellspring Ogerpon, there's a ton of different uses for it now. 4 Gift Energy, so we can draw up when we are knocked out. And finally, the last 4 cards in deck, 4 Jet Energy. So we've just got a ton of consistency with the energy. In total, we've got 17 energy. So similar to what we were running before for the Cincino. But obviously, we've got a ton more attackers now. The deck is a lot more versatile. We've got a few more supporters like Carmine that come in that help us set up our strategy, and on those early turns get the Archeops in the discard pile. There's been very few cards that have come in to help with consistency, but most importantly, the deck is a lot more powerful. So again, Lugia's in that spot. If it sets up, it probably wins. We've seen in the Champions League, Lugia be quite popular. It's been up there with stuff like Dragapult and Charizard. So if they're the most popular decks, I think Lugia and Dragapult are going to stand out. Let me know what you think of the list in the comments below. Let me know any changes you would make. Let me know what's in yours. That's all I've got for this episode though, so I will catch you in the next one.